Hi, everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of HR Debatable. My name is Nelly Verlinden. I am still your host, and today I'm being joined by two fantastic guests, Jasmina Viso and Tom Jonkers. Hi, Jasmina, and hi, Tom.
Hi, Nelly.
Hi, Nelly.
Jasmina, perhaps you can briefly introduce yourself.
My name is Jasmina. I come from Seek and Speak. We are an employer branding agency based in Copenhagen. We create strategies, concepts, content, and advertising, and we help companies attract and retain the existing employees. And we basically help build employer brands that employees dream of working for.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I'm going to go to you. Perhaps you can also briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tom, currently on a sabbatical in between jobs, but one of my recent achievements was transforming the image of a very risk-averse, boring bank into an employer of choice. And employer branding is something I really enjoy doing and talking about, so that's why I'm very happy that you invited me to talk over here. So let's go.
All right. Yes, let's go. Thank you both. All right. For everybody who's tuning in for the first time today and has not listened or watched an episode of HR Debatable before, let me briefly explain to you what we're doing here. So in HR Debatable, as the name suggests, we have debates on various HR and world of work related topics. So I am going to introduce each topic, share a statement with Jasmina and with Tom. I will ask both of them whether they vote yes or whether they vote no on the statement. And then, of course, they get the opportunity to elaborate on why they voted yes or no. So that's how it works in a nutshell. And here I think we go and start with the first debate. Our first debate is around employer branding. Now, employer branding plays a key role in talent acquisition because it can help you get clear on what your unique proposition is as an employer and what your organization stands for. Once you're clear on that, you can then shape your recruitment efforts and offering to attract your ideal candidates. Employer branding strategies are about communicating why job seekers should come and work for your organization rather than for others, creating a buzz, attracting the right talent, and also about reminding your current employees why they should stay with you. As such, an effective employer branding strategy can help you reduce turnover rates, improve retention, increase the number of qualified applicants, and attract more diverse talent. All of your employer branding efforts may, however, be in vain if your employees aren't actively participating in spreading the word. Let me share a couple of interesting stats in that regard. 76% of people trust the content that individuals share instead of company content. Employee advocacy programs attract 58% more top talent and enhance retention rates by 20%. And 69% of applicants refuse job offers if the company has a bad reputation among employees. And 78% of job applicants agree that employee ratings and reviews are essential. Looking at these numbers, one may wonder how much sense it makes to invest tons of money, time, and energy in a fantastic employer branding strategy without employee involvement. And so, Jasmina and Tom, we get to our very first statement of the day. Employer branding without employee advocacy has no credibility. All right, Tom, what do you vote on this statement?
I do agree.
Jasmina, what do you vote on this statement?
I agree as well, but I also disagree.
All right. Tom, I'm gonna go back to you. Perhaps you can, share with us why you agree with this one.
Well, I didn't even have to know the stats to be sure that employee advocacy brings kind of an authentic and credible flow to the whole story. Even when I'm looking for an employer, what I'm doing right now in my sabbatical, I tend to listen to the employees more than I listen to HR because HR has the role to sell something. It's also okay that employee advocacy can be cheaper even than big campaigns in some sort of way. That's what I felt when I did those things. I even want to make a bigger statement. I do not believe in employer branding As such, I am a firm believer of what I call employee storytelling. An employer should give the floor to their employees to tell the story. And the purpose or the goal is not to attract new people, but to manage expectations of people who meet other employees and hear that story. So I believe that it's going to have a positive influence on retention, on attracting new people. But the real goal is to make people feel more belonged in an organization and to manage the expectations of newcomers or potential candidates. So I strongly agree.
Okay, interesting. Thanks, Tom. Yasmina, you agreed and you also disagreed. So let's hear from you.
I actually think you have a very good point, Tom. And I think that the reason why I agree is that I think employee advocacy can be extremely effective. And with everything that Tom already said, I agree in that too. But I think employer branding as a discipline has really been put to shame. And that's why maybe you don't believe in employer branding anymore, Tom, because I think what's been left out is actually asking the employees in the initial phases of creating the employer brand. So I think what's more crucial than what comes before the employee advocacy is actually asking the employees, getting them involved, getting them engaged in creating the authentic, real employer brand that will attract more and will resemble also the candidates that you wish to attract. And that's where you say about the managing the expectations, which is extremely important. I think actually I've read a stat that says that the candidates trust employees 300% more than they trust HR and leaders, which is also a statement that supports what you just said, Neely. And I think the reason is that it's much more authentic. If I can see myself in another employee that's already there, if they can tell me the story, if they can tell me about development and their own story professionally and personally, and I can mirror myself in that, I think that is much more effective, but we just don't do it enough. We don't get the employees involved enough.
I agree, Yasmina. I'm not against employer branding as a métier or as something we have to do as an organization, but it's the word branding that triggers me to say, I do not want to brand something. I want to let them tell the story.
Absolutely.
I worked as a head of talent acquisition, so I know what people ask for, and in 80% of all our hires, they had a connection or a contact with some employee at a certain level in their recruitment process. And if that story is not consistent with what we are trying to sell from HR or the message that we send in our campaigns, then you have a mismatch. So it's very important to attract them by using your employees at the right time. So Yasmina, you're right from the beginning.
If I could just pick up on that, Tom, because it's absolutely true. I think also that whether you like it or not, you have an employer brand. So what you can do is you can try to influence which way it goes. You can try to influence whether it will be authentic and real and people can relate to it, but you cannot control it. And I think that's the most important thing to remember when you work with employer branding. It's not a marketing discipline. It's not about looking attractive, but not actually being it. It's about influencing how our employees see themselves in the company, why they work exactly for us and not the guy next door. And then try to let them free and actually get them to tell their stories, because that will be the most effective, also cost effective way of doing employer branding.
I think that's an interesting one with what you're saying there, Yasmina. So whether you like it or not, you have an employer brand. I think that's very true, actually. So that's a good, it's a good point that you're making there. So, but also what I'm picking up from what both of you were saying, can I then say that what often gets forgotten, or maybe even as an afterthought, is employee involvement when companies get active with their employer brand? Can I say it like that, or?
Yeah, and maybe we can also say that you have to have stories that are worth sharing. So in the worst case, if you don't have a lot of positive stories that the employees will share, they will share the negative things. And that's why I say you cannot control it. You can just try to influence the positive things. And there will always be negative things, but you have to be able to manage that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I see happening in Belgium now is that a lot of companies use their employees in their campaigns. That's something that I also did at the company that I worked. But they sell that a lot. They say everywhere, these are our employees. And then it loses authenticity. What are your thoughts on that, Yasmina?
Can you just repeat that again for me, Tom?
Yeah.
A lot of Nelly, you want to add something maybe?
Yeah, because I had exactly the same thing written down with this debate. So what you see happen quite a bit is that companies, they feature their employees, but in a bit of a salesy way. Like, so these are our employees, and then you see a testimonial here, or you hear a fantastic story how someone was able to develop themselves in the company there. And so I think the risk can be, and that was also Tom's question, the risk can be that it loses its authenticity then, and that it come across as maybe even as a bit forced. So and we were wondering what your thoughts were on that.
I'm glad you asked me, because that's what we do a lot. We do a lot of testimonials with employees at any given organization we work with, and it is by far the most effective piece of content that we can do. And it's not just like our stats; it's also what we get feedback from the companies that we work with. I think a lot of times it can seem forced, it can seem staged, and you also see a lot of campaigns by top companies where it seems like it's a script that the employee is given and has to do a voiceover with, and then you see like a lot of beautiful photos and scenarios where you think like, oh, this sounds fake, and it feels fake. I think what's important is to have a guideline to what is it that this specific employee, what is their story, what is their highlights, and how can we emphasize their personal story and why they believe that this is the right place for them, what really makes sense for them. And I think you can do it in a lot of ways. You have to keep it open. You don't script these employees. You let them, you have questions, and then you let them talk. And I think you will experience that a lot of times the questions that you prepared, it will not be the answers that will come in the video. It will actually be a lot of the other things that just goes when you have a really good dialogue and you ask why or how, or can you give me an example? So I think you can see definitely a lot of staged advertisements, which is not very employer branding like, but you can also see a lot of authentic content pieces. I think that really emphasizes why it is that these employees, they wish to work for this company.
Yeah.
And why they would personally recommend it to anybody else.
The part of the success that I found out afterwards is a couple of years ago, we didn't do anything about our employer brand. It was there. Everybody has one, but we didn't control it. And then we tried to do it by using our employees in a lot of campaigns and giving them the floor to talk. But nobody knew that they were employees. So we had a question afterwards. New hires came in and said, oh, we saw that guy from the campaign. Yeah, that's an employee. So we were thinking, should we maybe expose that a little bit more? But then maybe it becomes salesy. So we didn't do that. But the next time we did a new campaign, there was a lot of confidence in the organization that it will be used at the right time. So there was kind of an internal pride that stood up. So at a certain time, Freddy, 35 years at our organization, said, I want to be part of it. He acts, you could not script him. Nobody can script Freddy at any moment. So especially not at an employer branding video. But all of his colleagues were mentioning him. Look, my colleague Freddy is in the campaign, and they were texting and put it on social media. So everybody knew Freddy is working at Arenta. He's working at that bank, and he's a real employee. And it was more exposed, but in an authentic way. So I think that's the way to go.
And that's a very, very good example of employee advocacy done the right way, because you have an authentic statement, you have an authentic person that has a story to be shared, and then you have all the other colleagues that's backing him up and thinking, this is a very good ambassador for our company, we want to support this. And I think that's a very good example of how it's done right. But you can also see a lot of examples where companies hire actors, paid actors, to deliver the employee or employer branding campaigns. And I think in this day and age, excuse my French, but the candidates, they call bullshit. They can see through actors, they can see through scripted videos, and they can also see through just basic EVPs or basic values, they will question, but how or why or how much. They look for examples, they look for authenticity. So I think it's very important that you don't underestimate the candidates.
Nice. Very nice first debate. We are going to continue to the next one. Even though you were agreeing, broadly speaking, but yeah, let's go to the next one.